Hello and welcome to this step-by-step guide to creating your dozen final wishes. The first thing you do is click on the button at the top here called Create My Wishes. This will take you to another screen where you can enter your email address, and I'm going to enter a fake email address here. It then asks you to re-enter your email address to make sure that you've typed it in correctly. You'll then be asked to create a password, a memorable password. Anything will do, but as long as it's memorable really. I'm entering one here, and then we ask you to type it in again just to make sure that it matches. The next thing we're asking you to do is to make sure that you're not one of these awful spam robot things. So you'll be asked to enter some letters here that represent what you can see on the screen, just to make sure that you really are human, and then you click Create My Wishes. The system, as you can see here, will automatically send you an email giving you your password, reminding you about your password and the fact that you've created your dozen final wishes. At this point though, however, you can carry on creating your dozen final wishes. In fact, you can just see in my screen down there, it's confirmed that we've set up this new account. So the step-by-step process is really very simple. You have 12 questions to answer. The first thing you need to do is to type in your details. So click on My Details, and it will bring you to this screen. And obviously we're in edit mode here. We're just starting from scratch. You can eventually have a look at what you've created in the view mode. So I'm just going to create a fictional character here. I don't have a middle name, and I do have a nickname, and I'm going to type in our main head office postcode here. And what you can do is you can type in the postcode and you can click to look up that particular address, and it's found an address here, and you're just populating that. It will ask you for your landline number and your mobile number. These aren't essential, but these do actually appear on your dozen final wishes list, so it's probably a good idea if you put something in here. And then you quite simply click Save, and that's your first section of a dozen final wishes completed. And it says here, My details have been updated. You then start out by answering questions 1 through to 12, and a lot of times these questions can be answered by a drop-down selection. So let's look at VIP contacts first of all. Who do you want to be notified? Who do you want to lead on the arrangements for your funeral? Is there anyone else whose input you might like? Is there a particular funeral director that perhaps you've had experience of, or somebody else has, and you'd like them particularly to be involved? You can enter these fields and then hit Save. The next question is burial or cremation. Would you like to be buried or cremated? And you can use the drop-down box here to answer that question. You can also then select where you'd particularly like to have your body buried or your ashes interred. It could be in a cemetery, in a family plot, or in a woodland. You then hit Save, and this data is saved for your second section of a dozen final wishes. Question 3 is the kind of coffin that you'd like to be buried or cremated in. There's one question here. Would you like a typical solid wood coffin that comes a lot from funeral directors, or wicker or bamboo or cardboard, eco-pods or shrouds? And in this instance I'm going to select solid wood. Question 4 is about your personal effects. Is there anything that you'd particularly like to be buried with? You might say, I would like to be buried wearing my wedding ring. I'd like to be buried with a copy of the Bible. It then asks you what clothes you'd like to wear when you're in your coffin. I'd like to be buried in my favourite pyjamas, so I'm going to select night clothes. The next question is transport. This is largely transport from the funeral directors to the burial ground or the crematorium. And there's a whole range of vehicles now that you can select from: horse and carriage, a traditional hearse, a motorcycle hearse. I've always fancied going in a horse and carriage, so I'm going to select horse and carriage. The next question is about the ceremony service itself. What kind of ceremony are you looking for? A mixture of religious or non-religious, traditional or chosen by my friends and family? And how do you see the funeral ceremony? A small affair, my family only, my family and friends? I'd like everyone who ever knew me to come. And where would you like the service to be held? It could be at the crematorium, it could be at the church. I'd quite like mine to be at a woodland burial park. The next question is about who you'd like to come to the ceremony. I would like the person most prepared to do it to organise my ceremony. Turning then to music and readings at the actual ceremony itself. My music preferences while I'm alive now currently are quite varied, but I really fancy Jerusalem as a hymn to be sung. And in terms of favourite reading, I'd really like A Woodland Burial, favourite poem of mine by Pam Ayres, to be read. As to any other people I'd like to be given the chance to say a few words, well, all my friends. I'm not going to be around to hear what they have to say, but I kind of wish I was. Turning then to flowers and donations. My favourite flowers are lilies, but they have to be white and they have to be scented. In terms of donations to charities, there's so many to choose from at this point. I think I'm going to stop here at this particular point and come back, because you can come back to your A Dozen Final Wishes at any time, and I think I'd like to save it at this particular point. What about recordings? Would I like my funeral to be photographed and posted up on the internet, or photographs taken, or videos? So I have no preference really. And in terms of photographs, I also have no preference. In terms of my death being announced, well, I actually would like my death to be announced, and I'll leave that to the people organising my funeral as to how they do that. In terms of memorials, I know that I don't want a particularly large and ornate headstone. I would actually like quite a wooden memorial post, maybe with something carved on the top. And yes, there are some special words that I would like, but I'm not going to tell you what they are at this particular point, so I'm just going to save. In fact, I'm going to make that no so that I can save it and come back to it a bit later. And finally, are there any things that we haven't included here that I think it would be really important for someone to know about? At the moment, I've got quite a few, but I think I might probably need to whittle that down to one or two. So I'm not going to enter anything here. I'm just going to save where I am at this particular point. This is a really important document to me, so I want to make sure I get it right. So I'm going to save it. I am, however, now going to view my final wishes and just see what they look like at the moment. All of those questions that I've answered are going to be turned into a document which is called a PDF, and then I can share that PDF with friends and family when I want to and when the time is right. So here's a quick summary of what I've put. That's me, Joey. Yes. And this is all of the information about me that I have at the moment. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to turn that into a PDF. And this is what my dozen final wishes finally looks like. So I've had a look through that and I'm happy. There's nothing I want to change at the moment, but I think I might come back to it. So when I'm ready, I can send it by email, but at the moment there's a lot of questions still left unanswered, so I'm going to come back to this at a later stage. I have an account now here, and I'm currently logged in those traditional ways of talking about being on the internet. So I'm now going to log out. But if you remember, I received an email with my email address reminder and my password reminder. So when I'm ready, I can come back in here and re-answer some of the questions or change my mind about some of them. But this is the first start. You can come back to this document as many times as you like. We would thoroughly recommend that once you've created your dozen final wishes, do send it on to someone. Remind them of some of the things that you want to happen at your funeral. We also recommend that you don't store the dozen final wishes with your will. Sometimes we've heard of the will being read after the funeral has taken place. So just make sure that somebody knows about these dozen final wishes. And at this point, you can log out of the system. That's it from us, really. If you've got any questions, please do get in touch at info@adozenfinalwishes.co.uk. Thanks for listening.